Now it's time to hear the stories of Utes in their own words. This is Utes Insider presented by Pepsi. Here's your host, Mike Legasholt.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. It's being brought to you by University of Utah Health. With 16 convenient neighborhood health centers, we have a game plan for your family's health. Visit uvuhealth.org today. Well, last Friday, I had the chance to co-host one of our virtual huddles that Athletics has been putting on with the Alumni Association. Brian Holman, who is in his fifth year as Utah's lacrosse head coach, his third year at the Division I level, was our featured guest. You know, the story with the lacrosse team in Utah is quite unique. It was a club program for a number of years, quite successful before there was a push to make it a Division I program. David Neeleman was among the individuals pushing for that move. His son, Seth, was a lacrosse player ready to play collegiately, and David saw a chance to grow the sport not only at the U, but also in the state of Utah and in this part of the country. When he started to make his push, David decided that Brian Holman was the guy he wanted to run the program. Brian, at that time, in 2016, was an assistant coach in North Carolina. They had just won the NCAA Championship. In the latter part of the interview, I asked Brian about that recruitment process with David. It's an intriguing story that's fun to hear. There were some details I hadn't heard Brian talk about before, so that should be fun to listen to. Utah made that transition from club to Division I in 2019. Brian and I talked about the growth of the program, the new conference affiliation starting in 2022 as they moved from being an independent to the ASUN conference as an affiliate member. Brian, always an engaged guy to talk to. Brian Holman, the head coach of Utah Lacrosse, in just a moment.
To hear more episodes of this show and other Utah Athletics podcasts, search for them on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. Now, back to more of Utes Insider presented by Pepsi.
Brian Holman, who is in his fifth year overall as the head coach of Utah Lacrosse, third year at the Division I level. Brian, thanks for dropping by to a huddle.
I appreciate it, Mike. So good to be here with you, buddy.
You know, you always play a challenging schedule. That's been your mantra from day one. Already this year, you played two top teams in Denver and Loyola. Just tell us about how your season has gone so far.
Yeah, it's gone great. You know, we're 4 games in. We're 1-3, but you know, just before this last game against Loyola, you know, we played Denver week 1 and we lost 9-8, and I was just so proud of the kids. You know, I didn't know what was going to happen there. You know, you're playing, you know, perennial national championship caliber program,
right?
And so played really well there. We had our chances down the end that I think we could have made a couple plays, and I think we could have put a little more pressure on them. We came back. We were down 9-6. We scored 2 straight, and then we you know, play Bellarmine, a team that will be in our new conference starting next year, and we kind of challenged the guys as to kind of set the tone on what we thought the conference should look like, and we played a really good game, and then we played a great game in the fourth quarter. I think we went on a 5-1 run, which is something we've been trying to focus our guys on. In the first couple of years, we started out early in games. We've had big first quarter runs, and we haven't played great down the stretch. And I think it's been a point of emphasis on our program of growth is to play a little bit more consistently. And we did that against Bellarmine, and then we kind of put the foot on the pedal in the fourth quarter. And then we go to Air Force, another team that will be in our conference next year. And we just had a dogfight. You know, it was up and down, and you know, and I think that's a game when we left there, a lot of our guys were really disappointed. And you know, for me, Mike, that shows growth. Like a year ago to lose to Air Force by a goal, or 2 years ago, you know, everybody would be like, hey man, we can kind of hang out with some of the big boys. And you know, now our guys are getting upset when we lose those games. So that one kind of stung a little bit. It's the first time I've seen it carry over in our team, and which is again something I don't want to have happen, but it's actually a sign of growth where it's set for a few days, and then we hop on a plane again and fly. We fly to Baltimore, 2,000 miles on a Friday afternoon. We get there Friday night. All right, we get to the hotel. We don't practice, and we get up and we play a 11 o'clock game the next day. And we fought, but we showed a little wear and tear. I think our guys were tired. I think they were no excuses. I mean, Loyola's, we could play them 10 times, and I'm not sure we would beat them once right now.
Yeah.
But you know, in all this, Mike, as you know, it's all about learning. What do we learn from it? And I think what our guys learned from that is, you know, we actually competed with them for a while. It was a couple stretches where, you know, it was 8-5. There was a stretch there when it was 4-2. There was a stretch there when it was 9-6. but it's that next level. Like, can we make that next step? So, we're in a great spot. We have our first home game this weekend against Jacksonville, a team that we have a lot of respect for, and I'm just so happy for the guys to be able to play at home. It's been 4 straight weeks on the road, and so we feel like we're in a really good spot right now. And the record really, it's inconsequential. It's more about the program and the development as we continue to push forward. So.
Yeah, it sounds like some signs of growth, even though the losses have been there more than you maybe like, but you're playing a great schedule. Again, Denver ranked 5th, Loyola 12th when you played them, so been a challenging start to your season. Brian, I want to go back to last year before we dive into this year's team. Everyone's been dealing with the COVID-19 situation. Your team last year, 3-3, you're on the East Coast, you're coming back, and your season was shut down. Everyone's schedule's been disrupted with practice, off-season conditioning. How have your guys dealt with all this as they head into this 2021 season?
Yeah, I honestly, Mike, I think that's probably the thing we're most proud of. I think we've dealt with it as well as anybody. We have some mantras, in our program that we've used since the day we got out here. One of them is no excuses. Like, and I think our guys are kind of built for stuff like this. And another one is find a way. And one of our teaching points with our guys on a consistent basis is, just make the best out of every single day. Right? Just be your best version. Be the best Utah lacrosse player you can be that day. And then when that day's over, you put your head on your pillow, you can look yourself in the mirror, get a good night's rest, and then you wake up tomorrow, and then you do it again, right? So it's a one day at a time kind of mentality.
Right.
I think that teaching, being implemented for 3 years in our program, for some guys a little bit longer that were club guys that transferred over, I think it really helped us in kind of facing what the adversity was. And, my mentality is, whatever life throws at you, you got to deal with it. And I didn't sense our guys making a lot of excuses of why they couldn't do things, And I think COVID's, besides the disastrous piece of the health issue, right? But what lessons are we learning from it? And if you dig deep enough, man, you can see all kinds of beneficial things that can make us better people, that can make us a better team. So, has it had an effect? Sure. I mean, things are different, but that's the way they are. So you adapt to the new normal and you push forward, and then you start creating in a different environment around the environment that's presented to you, right? So instead of trying to push your old thoughts and your old ways into this world, let's take what this world has given us right now and then carve, hold on to some pieces of no excuses and find a way, but then you have to carve a new way around it. So that's been our approach, and knock on wood, we haven't had one guy test positive since they came back in January, and we've played 4 straight road games. We've flown 4 times in an airplane, and so I give our guys a tremendous amount of credit. And the last piece to that is, I challenged them at the beginning of the year. I want to be one of the teams standing that said we get to play every single game this year, and I don't want COVID to be the victor. We're going to beat COVID, and then we're going to try to beat the next team that we're playing.
Yep.
So our first priority is to whip COVID, and so far we've done that. So.
Very good. Let's talk about your team here, Brian. Just 2 upperclassmen. You have 25 freshmen, 17 sophomores. All the eligibility is frozen last year, so on paper, a young team, but it is relatively a pretty young team for you. Just talk about maybe some standout guys to watch when fans watch your team perform at home this year.
Yeah, I catch a lot of grief for that. People are like, what is he doing out there? It's just all freshmen, all sophomores, but it's deeper than that. We're trying to build a program that's going to compete nationally, and it takes time, and it's an evolution, right, of bringing talent in, and we still have 4 or 5 guys that play club lacrosse for us on our lacrosse team, and that's an incredible thing, and 2 of those guys are captains. All right, so I'm really proud of that. Start with those guys, and I'm not big on this, Mike, and you know that. I get, John Vu, our sports information guy, really gets on me because I don't give him any names. Lacrosse is a team sport, and I've never been one to single out people. But,
right.
It's got to start with our leaders. Rylan Lemons is a senior, and he came here as a club lacrosse recruit, and he's a starting defenseman for us. And right now he's playing as well as anybody in the country, but he has worked so hard at being a Utah lacrosse player. He came here, he was 6'1", and probably 180, 85 pounds, 6'2". He's 6'3", he's about 220.
Wow.
And he is committed to the lifestyle. John Rose is another senior that came here as a club player, and same way. John just carries himself, he typifies what we want in a Utah lacrosse player. And Sammy Cambert is a junior now, sophomore, junior, however that all works out. And he arguably is one of the best long stick middies in the country. If he was playing for a top 10, 15 team, he'd be an All-American.
Wow.
So everything starts, with the leadership and on our program. And then we got some young guys just budding and developing behind them. And they're setting the standard for the culture that's been created. And that's really been our priority from the get-go. People talk about culture all the time. There's no magic formula to it, right? And it's something that has to be developed over time. But it starts with the players on your team understanding what the expectations are and how we want to look. And those three guys have exuded that. So I'll just start and end with those guys.
It's a good place to start, sounds like to me. I know you're very high on those guys from talking to you over the years.
Yep.
Brian, you mentioned the new conference next year. This has been in the works for a while. You've been independent. That's a tough road to hoe when you're an independent out west. Now in the conference 6-team league and the ASUN starting in 2022, that gives you automatic access to NCAAs if you win the league. That's huge for you. Just talk about what this new conference affiliation means for Utah lacrosse.
Yeah, I can't even explain it, Mike. It's everything. It's everything. It's literally, if this affiliation didn't occur, I'm not a big prognosticator into the future. Only the good Lord knows what's going to happen. But, we would just, it'd be a tough road to hoe. And I want to explain that a little bit if you don't mind. Like,
please do.
People don't understand as an independent, especially in lacrosse, there are no independents making the NCAA tournament in lacrosse with the automatic qualifiers. And then the RPI is a really outdated way of garnering the field, and that's something lacrosse is trying to change. We would have to basically go undefeated to make the playoffs. And, I'd like to think we're going to be a pretty good lacrosse program soon, but the pressure of trying to do that year in and year out, not many teams can do that, right?
Tough to be perfect.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of pressure on the kids. And then the second piece of that people don't understand is that, we have lost countless number of recruits where we were in their final 3 to 5 schools that have said, Coach, we'd love to come play for you and be a part of this whole program, but, I'm going to go to XYZ or XYZ because how are you guys going to get in the playoffs? And I can't answer that.
Right.
I just said you're right, but you got to have faith and trust and so on and so forth. So those were the hurdles, right? And then you throw in the fact that, say we start 1-3 and we have to fly 30-some thousand miles to play games and continuing to motivate the guys. Like, what are we playing for, right? Pride, yeah, but that only lasts for so long. So there were some major obstacles for us to achieve what we wanted. So what the conference does is it clearly shows us a path. It provides our guys, and this is what makes me so happy, a chance to compete for a conference championship, a chance to compete for a conference all selection for an all-conference team.
Right.
And then, ultimately what the major goal is a chance to get into the NCAA playoffs. And so now the path is clear. Now our recruiting can shape differently. Scheduling helps a lot. We're guaranteed X amount of games at home, which has been a really not an easy thing to do right now. So
right.
I can't tell you. It's just been it's a load off of the program's shoulders, and it's a load off of the school's shoulders because, they didn't really know what to do. And so the path is clear, and now the objective is to get in there and compete and win that thing and get into the NCAA playoffs.
Yeah, that's an exciting step for your program. Again, that starts next year in 2022. The ASUN going to 6 teams in lacrosse as members next year.
Yeah.
Brian, you and I have talked about your story. I know it well. I know the lacrosse fans probably know it, but this audience might not know your backstory. Yeah. So I think it's worth telling for this group today. You were an assistant coach at North Carolina from 2009 until 16. You just won the national championship in 16. And Dave Neeleman, who wanted to take lacrosse at Utah from club level to Division I. He calls you up. I know he's a very persistent guy, and said, "Hey, I want you to be my coach." Yeah. From that point on, tell us how you ended up as the head lacrosse coach at Utah.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool story. Yeah, and you're right. David is extremely persistent. I turned him down twice. It didn't really. I was kind of in a transition phase with Carolina. You know, a large part of me and Lori, my wife. You know, we had 3 kids that just went to school there, all played at UNC. And we were kind of at that point where, you know what, do we just stay here? I had a good gig going there.
Yeah.
And we just won a national championship. And that's what I went down there for, to help Joe Bresci turn the program around and to win a championship. And you know, it took us a little longer than we thought. Sometimes that's the way the good Lord works, is you got to keep plugging until it's ready. And then I do get that phone call from David, and I said, thanks, I appreciate it, and no thanks. And 2 weeks later, I get another call, and Coach, I've done a lot of research and background, and you are the guy that I want to do this. And I was like, now I'm good, you know. and then I get a third phone call, and I'll never forget this, you know, the certain things that stick with you. And I was out on our back porch in Carolina. It was in June, and, you know, and I'm on the phone, and my wife comes over to me and she's like, "Is that same guy again?" And she's like, "I'm like, I put him." I was like, "Hold on, David." I'm like, "Yeah, that is." She goes, "I think you ought to pay more attention to him. I think you should listen." And I was like, "All right." So I listened, and then you know, we hung up, and I said, "Honey, this is just crazy."
Yeah.
You know, the odds of this happening are why you know, we got a nice life here, you know, and then she kind of, you know, as great wives do, you know, she knew what button to push with me, and I've always been a little bit of a gambler, Mike. You know, I've started businesses, and I've lost a lot of money and made some and lost it again, and we're an adventuresome type of people. I love a challenge, and that's what she got me with. She's like, you are built for this. You love challenges. You love all, and I'm like, so I called David back. And we flew out here, and 2 things happened. And again, David's an alum of the university, and I think this is important for the alums to hear this, because he's such a great representation of Utah. He showed me around the campus, and I met Manny Hendricks, and God, fell in love with Manny. I felt like I've known him for 25 years.
Yeah.
And Kyle Brennan was really gracious and just kind of showing me around. I didn't come out with Lori or any of our family, and then David, we went up. He has a house in Deer Valley, and we spent the night there. And you know, just a lot of thoughts going around in your head. And I woke up the next morning, and I'm an early riser. David's an extremely early riser. I'm not sure he sleeps. So I go down in the kitchen, and he's making breakfast. And I don't know, just something struck me about that. You know, this guy's done really well for himself, but I could tell this wasn't the first time he ever made breakfast. And he said, "Yeah, I do this when my grandkids come in, and I'm always cooking for them, and they can go skiing and stuff." And that really resonated with me, because that's the type of person I am. You know, so we just kept digging. And long story short, you know, through a lot of prayer and a lot of conversations, I finally accepted the offer to come out here. And I think one thing too, Mike, that's interesting is, there was no guarantees in this.
Right.
The school wasn't like, "Oh yeah, we want men's lacrosse." They were sort of the other way around. And
it took some time.
It took some time.
Yeah.
It took a lot of hard work, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of my staff, man. They committed to come out here with me and Lori, and obviously Marcus is my son. He's one of them. But you know, they had a lot of other offers that they could have taken that were guaranteed, and this wasn't. And you know, we dug our heels in, and we really got out into the community. And the last shout out would be to the school for accepting, you know, what we had to offer. And then to this lacrosse community, and the community in general, and this city and state is just phenomenal. And, you know, without all their support, this would have never have ever happened. And so it's truly a grassroots program. And I don't think anything's been done like this in the NCAA in a long, long time, the way this whole thing, and you know, and I think it's worth other programs and schools to look into it, because we did accomplish it, and we are doing well. We've got 48 guys on campus from 19 different states, you know, and they're getting a 3.4, almost a 3.5 GPA. And everything that I told the school we would do, we're continuing to get there with. So that's kind of how the story unfolded.
It's a great story. You're right. It's almost very unique. Almost has never happened anywhere to build a program the way you have. And you said it was a gamble.
Yeah.
There was no guarantee. But now here you are, Coach. You're ready to go to year 4 Division I. You've got a conference lined up. We had a Twitter question come in saying you were very clear with your goals when you went Division I, saying year 5, we're going to NCAAs. There's been COVID-19 impacting last year, this year as well. But you've got a new conference next year. Have you changed your 5-year timetable to make NCAAs with everything that's happened to you?
No, that would be an excuse. So there are no excuses in our program. So, we'll push forward, and the light is clearly at the end of the tunnel. The train's not coming at us. We can see the light there.
Yep.
And now it's time to put all the pieces together. But I don't want to lose sight of the thing that's most important is, we are building a program. We're not building a team. All right. So that is priority number 1 because the program's going to be here forever. The teams come and go. So if anything gets in the way of us building this program the way we want it built through the pillars of Utah lacrosse, that would be the only thing that holds us up. But for right now, no way. We're going to compete hard this season, and we're going to grow. That's why I'm praying for 12 games, because now these freshmen get a full year under their belt. Last year, the only thing that hindered us was we were still playing a lot of young guys, but they only got half a year.
Right.
But we'll get that back. We'll get that back through practice, and we'll get that back through competing this year. And next year, it's game on. So, yeah.
Exciting times for your program. Let's talk about your schedule, Brian, before I let you go. 3 home games this year. The first one coming up Saturday against Jacksonville, 1 o'clock. That will take place at Crimson Field, which is part of the new soccer lacrosse complex over by the softball stadium. It's off Mario Capiccio Drive. Should be a fun afternoon to get your guys out there. The weather should be great. Just talk about your home schedule here in 2021.
Yeah, it's sad because of COVID. We had 6 home games, so we're down to 3 now. And one of them is a Division II school, Westminster, which I just needed. Why not?
Right.
They're right down the street. It helps them. It helps us. But yeah, we had 6 home scheduled games, and 4 of those teams, because of COVID, the schools determined that they weren't going to fly. So we ended up with really 2 Division I games, Jacksonville, and then we finished with Robert Morris at home on May the 1st.
Yep.
But again, looking at the silver lining, it would be, it is COVID, so fans can't come out. So it'd be sad for us to have 6 home games this year and have no fans there. Last year,
right.
Mike, we were when the season ended, we were number 3 in the country in attendance, and that's again another shout out to this community. We're putting 2,000 to 3,000 people in the stands, and my goal, our goal is, when we get going here next year, we're going to have 5 or 6 home games, and we want to be the number 1 team in the country in average attendance, and that's going to have to be somewhere probably around 4,000 or 5,000 people. I believe we can do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got Jacksonville Saturday. That's priority number 1. I'm just so happy again for the guys to be able to play at home. 4 weeks on the road is a little tough, but and they're a great opponent. They're actually going to be in the Southern Conference. They're in the Southern Conference, and the ASUN and the SoCon are kind of like sister conferences. So we'll have 2 crossover games in the SoCon every year. So Jacksonville is probably going to be a regular opponent for us moving forward. And then we have Westminster the next week. Great program, Division II school here in town. And then we finish up on May 1st with Robert Morris.
Well, I think it'll be fun just for fans to watch your team. Obviously, they can't come in person, but they'll be live streamed. Yeah. Maybe some fans later in the year, we'll see. But I think just the fact you're playing the schedule, you've got some home games for your kids, should be exciting Saturday. Brian, appreciate the time. Thanks for dropping by.
Yeah, I appreciate it too, Mike. Thanks a lot.
All right.
For more on Utah athletics, including up-to-date schedules and ticket information, log on to utahutes.com. Now back to more of Utes Insider presented by Pepsi.
Today's show being brought to you by Pepsi. Grab a Pepsi and some friends and get in the game. Pepsi, proud partner of Utah Athletics. Well, the role that Brian's wife played in convincing him to consider the Utah job, and the fact that, as Brian tells it, she knew a bunch to push, was something I'd never heard before. And I'm so glad she did. Brian's been great. I remember walking by a lacrosse practice in the spring of 2018. It was her last year at the club level. And I've heard a lot of coaches talk to their teams over the years, but I just felt compelled to stop by and listen after I heard Brian talking, and the conviction with which he speaks and the way I saw his players respond to him really grabbed me. I can see why he's been successful. I know why David Needleman now chose him to be the guy. And as you've heard, even with 2 years impacted by COVID-19, Brian is now backing down from his 5-year plan to get Utah into the NCAA tournament, and that would be in 2023. So the program joins the ASUN Conference next year. That's 2022. You look at this roster, it is filled with freshmen and sophomores who in 2023 will be juniors and seniors. So Brian clearly has a plan. It's been a growth process, but I'm excited to see what he can do with this program in the next 2 to 3 years. Well, coming up in the next few weeks, the Utah ski team is in excellent position to win the NCAA Championship once again. If they do, we will try to catch up with a couple of the skiers next week. Also, head softball coach Amy Hogue, who is going into the Utah Athletics Hall of Fame this fall, as both a player and coach, is set to join me. That will do it for our show today. Thanks to Mike Gillen, and on the technical side, I'm Mike Lagerschultz. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, so long, everybody.
This has been Utes Insider presented by Pepsi. To hear more episodes of this show and other Utah athletics podcasts, search for them on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube.